Now getting some new details into News 19 regarding 39-year-old Elena Moore. She was initially reported missing in Irmo, and now law enforcement is giving us some more detail.
There is a version of Elena Moore that the whole country met over the last few weeks. The missing trainer, the face on the flyer, the body in the woods. But there is another version of her, a quieter one, and she left it behind herself, in messages, in posts, in things she said out loud to the people closest to her. Because long before there was a search, long before there were cameras and tip lines and a coroner's microphone, Elena had been telling people something, over and over, for years. She wanted out, not in a rumor, not in someone else's theory, in her own words. And here is the part that stops you cold. We have so much of her voice in this case, so many things she wrote and said about the life she was trying to leave. And yet the one question all of those words cannot answer is the only one that matters now. How did she die? You already know the headlines. So tonight, we are not going to walk you through them again from the top. We are going to listen to Elena instead and follow her own words to the place where they suddenly run out. On the outside, Elena Catherine Moore looked like someone who had it figured out. She was 39, a personal trainer at Wolf's Fitness Center. She also worked as a pharmacy technician and bartended around Lexington, South Carolina. 3 jobs, 3 different rooms full of people who saw her every week. Her friends describe her the same way, again and again. Strong, outgoing, always smiling. The person who lifted everyone else up, the one who showed up. That is the public Elena, the one in the gym photos, the one in the anniversary posts. But the people who knew her best will tell you the public Elena and the private one were not always the same woman. And the gap between those two, the confident face and the quieter truth underneath it, is where this whole story actually lives. Because the private Elena had been trying to walk out of her own life for a very long time. To understand that, you have to go back. Not weeks, years. The earliest piece of it that has surfaced publicly comes from 2017. A close friend, Aston Jeffcoat, shared a Facebook Messenger screenshot with reporters.
I think my friend was struggling for her life. I think she was literally afraid for her life from what had been happening the last couple of weeks that led up to that DoorDash video. And there's just too much of past things that I do know, factual things that I've heard, and what I've heard in the last month this went on in the relationship. There has been issues. They were trying to separate, and this is red flags to me when the car was touched, period.
A message Elena sent on the 13th of July that year. In it, Elena talked about possibly ending her relationship and looking for a roommate. She wrote that she might be ending what was then an almost 5-year relationship and might be looking for somewhere new to land. Now, sit with the timing of that. 2017. That is 9 years before she died. At that point, she and Brandon Slice had been together around 5 years. They would not marry until much later. So this is not a message from her final weeks. This is not a goodbye note. It is the first visible thread in something much longer. A pattern that, according to the people around her, would repeat for the better part of a decade. Her friend Lauren Beasley described that pattern in plain language. She said Elena went through cycles, wanting to move out, wanting to end it, and then not. Beasley said Elena would tell her she didn't know what to do, that she would say things like, "I love him," and then things would get better for a while. And then it would come back around. In Beasley's words, it was definitely a cycle. Cycles of wanting to leave and not. Another friend, Sandra Campbell said the same thing in her own way, that Elena had tried to leave the relationship in the past. So this is the shape of it. Not one dramatic exit, a wish to go that surfaced and sank and surfaced again across years. The kind of thing that is easy to miss when it is happening in front of you. The kind of thing that only looks like a pattern when you line it all up afterward. And here is what makes that pattern so hard to read from the outside. Through all of it, the public story kept moving forward. Elena and Brandon Slice did not break up in 2017. They stayed together. And on the 29th of February, 2024, a leap day, a date that only comes around once every 4 years, they got married. Think about that for a second. Years of private messages about wanting out, and then, publicly, a wedding, anniversary posts, birthday tributes, the language of a couple building a life. That is the whole problem with reading a marriage from the outside. The posts everyone could see told one story. The messages only her closest friends saw told another, and nobody watching her feed would ever have guessed the two were happening at the same time, inside the same woman. And here is where I have to be honest with you, because it matters. That 2017 message is the clearest line we have in Elena's own hand about wanting out, and it is old. The wish to leave was a long on and off thing, not a final decision. Anyone who tells you she made a clean break right before she died is filling in a blank that the record does not fill. We are not going to do that. We are just going to follow what she actually left behind. And what she left behind got darker as the years went on. In the months before she disappeared, Elena was writing again, this time on a second Instagram account, the kind of quiet corner people keep for the thoughts they are not ready to say to everyone. According to TMZ, which reported on the posts, the tone of them was raw. There were posts about pain, about an exhausting kind of hatred sitting inside her chest, about looking at someone she once loved and feeling resentment instead. One post she reshared earlier in the year struck a different note entirely. Relief. A sense that, as she put it, the war was over. That a weight she had carried for a long time was finally gone. That she felt lighter with a certain someone out of her life. It reads like a woman working her way out of something heavy, maybe even like a woman who thought she had. And that contrast inside the posts is the haunting part. Pain in one breath, relief in the next. Hatred sitting in her chest, and then a sense that the weight had lifted. People do not write like that about something small. They write like that when they believe they are finally climbing out of something that nearly buried them. But here is the thing the honest version of this story has to say out loud. Those posts do not name anyone, not one of them. And one of Elena's own friends, Mendy Miller, told TMZ that Elena had been on a journey to cut toxic people out of her life, including friends. Not just one person, people. So we do not get to decide who those posts were about. Elena did not say, and the people who knew her have offered more than one answer. We can feel the weight in them. We cannot assign it. Anyone who tells you for certain who she was writing to is guessing. And in a case like this one, guessing about a living person is exactly how real harm gets done. What we can say is this. In her own words, across years, Elena Moore was a woman trying to get free of something. That much is hers, and it is clear. If you have been following this case and you want the next real development the moment it lands, not a rumor, the actual finding, take a second and subscribe right now. Because where her words go next is where this stops being about the past and starts being about a death no one can yet explain. Then, about a month before she vanished, Elena went quiet. Not quieter, silent. The woman who lived out loud online, the workouts, the clients, the daily updates, simply stopped. Lauren Beasley said it was completely out of character. For someone that active, a month of nothing was its own kind of alarm, and as the words stopped, the behavior started. On the 31st of May, Elena met friends for a meal. Sandra Campbell was there, and by Campbell's account, something was off from the moment they sat down. When it was over, Elena pulled her aside. She couldn't talk there, too many people. She told Campbell they needed to speak privately, one-on-one, and then she said 5 words that Campbell has not been able to shake. She was scared for her life. She didn't explain why. They agreed to connect later, and then they played phone tag. Campbell missed a call from Elena on the 4th of June and never got the chance to call back and learn what her friend had been trying to say. The words had been building for 9 years, and right at the end, when Elena finally reached for someone to hear the rest of it, the line went quiet. A reminder, because fairness demands it. That account is Campbell's. It is her memory of her friend, and it is powerful. But it is one person's account, and a private investigator connected to the case has publicly disputed her broader read of Elena's life. Hold it as what it is. There is one more moment from those final weeks, and it does not sound like the Elena anyone describes. In the days before she disappeared, doorbell camera footage caught her in a residential area, and she seemed lost. A delivery driver had dropped off a food order at a home. Elena picked it up. The resident, a man named John Moore, no relation, opened his door, and Elena seemed confused and disoriented about where she even was. She started to follow him toward the house. About an hour later, a neighbor, Sarah Burleson, says she saw Elena again, this time going through packages that were not hers. Burleson asked what she was doing. Elena's answer was 4 words. Honestly, I have no idea. That is where the words end. The expressive woman, the one who wrote everything down, the one who said she was scared. By the start of June, she could not even say what she was doing on a stranger's porch. You know what happened next, so we will not linger, but you have to see it through the lens of everything she left behind. On the 11th of June, Elena signed in to her Planet Fitness at around 6:40 in the evening. She did not work out. She showered and she left. Police would later say she had no vehicle in her possession that night and that her phone was not pinging. She was seen heading toward the wooded area behind the Lowe's next door. And then, for 2 hours and 37 minutes, nothing. No camera, no confirmed sighting. At 9:17, a camera found her one last time in a Publix parking lot on Old Cherokee Road, wearing the same olive green hoodie and black pants, walking. That was the last confirmed image of Elena Moore alive. The next morning, her husband, Brannon Slice, found her car in the Lowe's lot and reported her missing. In a now-deleted comment, he had written that his wife was not well. For 6 days, Lexington searched. On the 15th, a small army of agencies combed the woods behind the gym and found nothing. Her phone stayed dark through all of it. Investigators believed she had it with her when she vanished, but there was no signal to follow, and it never surfaced. Then, on the 17th, a single tip from the community sent searchers to a different stretch of woods entirely, near Lakeside Middle School, roughly 1.5 miles from that last Publix sighting. At about 2:48 that afternoon, they found a body. The clothing matched. Sit with that for a moment. All those agencies, all that ground, all those resources, and in the end, it was not the big search that found her. It was one resident making one phone call, pointing at a place no one had looked. And the woman who had spent years quietly writing her way toward an exit had reached one, just not the kind anyone wanted for her. 2 days later, the coroner confirmed it was Elena. The autopsy was done the next day, And on the 22nd of June, the findings came out. This was supposed to be the answer. It wasn't. The examination found no cause of death, no traumatic injury, no bruising, no lacerations, no gunshot wound, no stab wound, no blunt force trauma, no strangulation, no external injuries of any kind. A 39-year-old woman found in the woods 6 days after she vanished, and her body, on the outside, said nothing about why she was dead. The cause of death was listed as pending. The coroner said the work wasn't finished. Toxicology, microscopic tissue studies, a full review of her medical history. And until all of it was done, and a forensic pathologist had formally determined both the cause and the manner of her death, the office would say no more. By then, the state's elite investigators had taken over the death investigation entirely. That word, pending, is doing a lot of quiet work. It does not mean nothing happened. It means the thing that happened did not leave a mark a coroner could see across a table, and the answer is hiding somewhere smaller, in her blood, in her tissue, in a medical history none of us are entitled to. 3 separate doors, and not one of them has been opened in public yet. So think about what we are left holding. We have years of Elena's words, the 2017 message, the cycles her friends watched, the raw posts about pain and relief, the 5 words at brunch. We know what she wanted. We know she was afraid. We know, near the end, she was confused in a way that frightened the people who loved her. We have her voice on almost everything, except the one thing that matters now. Her words can tell you about her marriage and her fear and her exhaustion. They cannot tell you how she died in those woods. Only the science can do that, and the science has not spoken yet. That is the missing piece. Not a villain, not a confession, a silence, sitting at the exact center of a case overflowing with this woman's voice. Elena Moore told us again and again in her own words that she wanted out of a life she found heavy. That part is hers, and it is real, and it deserves to be heard plainly instead of twisted into something the evidence does not support. She wanted out. She said so for years, but wanting out of a relationship and ending up dead in the woods are 2 different facts, and nothing in the public record connects them. No one has been charged. The cause of death is unknown. To draw a line between her words and her death right now would be to invent the very thing this case is still missing. So we wait, because the answer exists. It is in a lab, it is in a toxicology report and a set of tissue slides and a pathologist's final ruling. And when that lands, the silence at the center of this case finally breaks. And we will know whether her own words were the warning everyone now wishes they had heard, or whether the truth was something none of them saw coming. This investigation is still open. The science is still pending. And when it moves, when any real piece of it reaches the public record, this is where the full breakdown will be, with all the context you now have, before most of the coverage has finished reading the press release. If you want to understand the next development instead of just hearing about it, subscribe and turn on notifications. You will not be starting from zero. Before we close, this needs to be said clearly and on the record. No one named in this video has been charged with any crime in connection with this case. Brandon Slice has been confirmed by the Lexington Police Department as not a person of interest and as cooperating with investigators. This remains an active death investigation, and nothing presented here is a claim of criminal guilt against any person. Every detail was drawn from public reporting and official statements. From the Lexington Police Department, the Lexington County Coroner's Office, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and outlets including Fox News Digital, the New York Post, the Post and Courier, and TMZ. Elena Catherine Moore left behind a lot of words. The least the rest of us can do is be careful with them and wait for the ones that haven't been spoken yet.